Hey, it's Craig back with another Mortgage Minute, and everybody's asking the question, where are mortgage interest rates headed? That's a great question. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but I want to start off by saying, understand something that if anybody ever tells you they know for sure where mortgage interest rates are headed, run from that person because they're either crazy or a liar or both. But let me tell you, no one knows that answer for certain. Just like no one knows for certain where the stock market's headed. Are stocks going up or down? You can't really predict that, but you can know what causes things to happen the way they do. And so it's the same with mortgage interest rates. So let's talk about what's going on with mortgage interest rates right now. Um, Last week, the Fed met and they increased the Fed funds rate 0.75%. And what that in effect does is that increases the cost of borrowing for things like home equity lines of credit, car loans, credit cards, things like that. It does not directly impact mortgage interest rates. However, right after that, for the next couple of days, you saw mortgage interest rates rise. And I'm sure some people looked at that and said, well, see, you said it doesn't directly affect it, but look what happened. Well, here's the reality. I think the market's reaction to what the Fed did last week was in part saying, we don't think you're doing enough to fight inflation. And I don't feel like right now the market has a lot of confidence in what the Fed is doing right now to fight inflation. So here's the thing. Why does inflation matter to mortgage interest rates? It's pretty simple if you think about it. So if someone, whether it's a big hedge fund, a lender, whoever, is going to give someone else a mortgage loan for $400,000, you got to think of it like this. They are willing to part with their money, $400,000 of their money, and they're going to get a portion of that money, the principal that the borrower is making on the mortgage payment, back every single month. But if they're doing it as a 30-year loan, they're not going to get all of their money back for 30 years. And if it's a fixed rate loan, whatever that rate is on that transaction, that's the most that that person that's giving the money, the lender, is going to receive for 30 years. Okay. So if someone thinks they're going to only get a return of, let's just use 6% for 30 years, and they feel like inflation is going to be a problem down the road, they may want a bigger return, right? And so what happens when inflation's an issue is investors like hedge funds and things like that, they tend not to want to put as much money into purchasing these mortgage-backed securities. And so what ends up happening is it's supply and demand. So as the demand is lower, prices of these mortgage-backed securities go lower and rates go higher. And that's probably complicating it a little bit. So here's the way to think about it. If inflation is high or thought to be rising, mortgage interest rates will rise. Okay. Now, the question is, where are mortgage rates headed? And so here's my belief. My belief that is that mortgage rates eventually will be headed back down. Because here's the thing. The Fed always gets what it wants. Okay. There's a saying that goes, you don't fight the Fed, because if the Fed wants to get inflation under control, they are going to get inflation under control. But it may not be in the next 2 weeks. It may not be in the next 2 months. So it takes a minute for what the Fed's doing to take effect on inflation. But my personal belief is the Fed will get inflation under control. And eventually, as inflation starts to come down, you will see mortgage rates trend down. That's not necessarily going to be over the next couple of weeks. That's not necessarily going to be over the next couple of months, but eventually you will see mortgage rates trend down. So when we're talking about the long-term outlook on mortgage rates, I'm not someone that feels like mortgage rates are going to continue to climb and continue to climb and continue to climb. That's not my take on it. I think eventually the Fed is going to get inflation under control, and inflation will start to subside and inflation will start to come down. And when that does happen, you will see mortgage rates trend down. If you've got questions about that, I'd love to talk to you. 615-498-5626. I appreciate you watching.